So yeah, so just running through my company's Athena Architectural Services. Basically, I started the practice back in 2012. I've actually got 38 years experience now. Started when I was sweet 16 in private practice. The company is a registered practice. We have a £5 million PI to go along with that, so we can work on some fairly large projects. And basically, we tend to offer a friendly and reliable and professional service. So just to run through the basics of what we do, which I've probably said earlier anyway, but we can do everything from planning drawings, building regulations drawings, working drawing packages, and that will include things like window details, very specific details so that the site can actually build from it and order their materials and that type of thing. And we work with on residential extensions, new house designs, housing developments, conversions, commercial properties and industrial developments. What I'm going to focus on today a little bit is just to run you through previous jobs and current jobs that we're working on in the commercial and in industrial developments. And we'll leave the housing for another day, so I'll just run through that. Okay, so with a commercial project, obviously it does what it says on the tin, but we can start with feasibility studies to assess whether the site is actually suitable for the development. You know, is there some mains drainage or a whacking great big gas supply or electrical supply running across the site, because that can have an impact on what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. We can carry out existing surveys on the existing buildings for the buildings and the site. We can get that done professionally with levels and everything. So if you've got a sloping site, you know, all of that could be taken into account with the designs, and then we can design the site layouts, design the new buildings, submit the planning applications, and basically deal with everything from planning through to site supervision. So we can get your building regs application, we can deal with contractors to get the buildings priced up, and somebody on site ready to start, and then follow that through to completion. Basically there's several projects that I'm going to run through. This is a development that I've probably mentioned before that I've got running at the moment, and we're actually at the building regs stage for this. So basically we had some existing buildings to demolish, some existing pig pens. We had one new unit of about 18,000 square feet that we were needed to design, and then conversion of the others to new cladding up to current building reg standards, etc., etc. So this basically, don't know if you can see my cursor here, is the site. So this is actually a lane really in Cressing. This is the existing topographical survey that was carried out by the surveyors. So we've got this building and this building were all for to be demolished. This building and this building are going to be converted. This building is to be demolished, and then in this space here there is a new building to go in. This one is to be refurbed as well. And it being a farm, we have massive silos and things that needed to be demolished. So we actually did a demolition plan so that the contractors could work to that. And then, so just following through, this is the site layout. So as you can now see that those buildings have disappeared. We've got all the allocated parking in here. We've had to allow for disabled parking bays, etc., etc. To comply with the planning. We've worked out how much parking is required. We've put a new road through, which is a one-way system through there to the exit, and we have a new building now put in there. So then what we'd do is we'd follow on with that. This is the basic sort of planning drawing, prettying up a little bit for the planners to see what we're actually doing, parking arrangements, etc., etc. And then these are the existing buildings as they stand at the moment. And then what we've done with those is redesigned those to have the internal layouts done, window positions, new cladding, etc., etc. Again, for planning to go through. This is the new build one. So again, we've got sort of the roller shutter doors and everything for lorry access, all the personnel doors and everything shown on there. Again, this is the basic planning drawings that were produced. We've then got to produce things like refuse stores, you know, everything needs to go into the planners in order for the application to be approved. This is the current, well, it doesn't look quite like that now because a lot of this has been demolished, but these were the original buildings. So you can see the barn that I was showing you earlier, which is this, is in a pretty bad state of repair. This is one of the buildings that remains. These buildings have all already been demolished, and this building is staying with some changes, and these pig pens are being demolished, and this is the position where the new building's going. So as you can see, it needed quite a bit of refurbishment on there. So then running through classic car dealership that we've done in Malden. This particular element was to convert an existing mezzanine space, which was used as storage, into office area. And this basically was to put a new window in the side. Plus we had planning approval gained for an external covered area and an external power wash area. So just run through. So this drawing is showing the mezzanine floor that's been converted into office area for the building regs, showing lighting, sections, that sort of thing, and the basic construction. This building, the client wanted to work out here, he's going to put some offices in there, so we just did some space planning for various different office arrangements, showing, you know, where the filing cabinets were to go, that sort of thing. And all this needed to meet the health and safety requirements for the amount of space that you're allowed to have per desk, etc., etc. And then we came up with some alternatives for him to decide what he wanted to put in and to get it priced up. So then just running through the other elements of the building. This was the covered area. So there's an existing building here, an existing building here, and then this arch covered area sits over there so that they can come in, deliver their cars, etc., and get them into the relevant buildings quite safely. Again, planning permission gained for that. And on one of those existing buildings, just on the bay here, basically it's a jet wash in there for the cars as they come in, so that they can be processed and put through their workshops, ready to come out the other end. Okay, again, this is the mezzanine floor as it was. That's been cleared now, but this was what it was as a store. These are the existing buildings. So the covered area is in this parking area here and stretches through. And everything has to be designed in line with their colours, colour schemes, etc. Okay, then on to another commercial venture, which was a shop conversion in Colchester. So we got planning and building regulations to convert a first floor storage area into an African cafe and takeaway. And again, just funny to join, so that's a bit the wrong way around. But that's the existing floor plan with stairs coming up from their existing shop. And then we've sort of redesigned that to incorporate the cafe area, seating areas, preparation and takeaway area, which was in here, and kitchen area, and a toilet that was required for building regs. And again, we gain planning and building regs for that, and for the client ready to get started and get serving food. We've also done a Ford dealership, and basically what they had is this very big Ford dealership actually, and they wanted to provide a new parts department with some office space over. So our design brief for that was to enlarge the extension, had to go and survey the property first, design the new layouts, and actually alter the access from the main road rather than from where it was currently served from, which was sort of further up the road and round the back. So they wanted something quite nice that they, you know, it looked good from the road, and would entice in people for their spare parts department. So just going through, this is just one of their buildings. So this is their MOT and service area as it stands at the moment. And the extension they wanted was to come into the front here. So that was all surveyed by me and drawn up as existing. This is the proposed floor plan. So just rejig this area. They didn't want to lose any of their service bays. So we've worked that so that they can get up to the first floor. This will be the parts department shop, which would be fitted out by them. And on the first floor, there was an office area for their existing staff to relocate into there. And again, they wanted some sort of space planning of how that would be set out. Parking arrangements were shown, and then the access off of the main road was indicated. So again, all for planning purposes. That's the existing elevations of the building, and then this was the new element. So this was the designed element that went on the side. Because they wanted the feature with the glass at the front, we've had to make the roof quite shallow, but he particularly wanted a feature on the front there. So that's that one. Again, this is the photos of the existing service area, and this is currently all car parking, which they wanted to move, and then the extension sort of sits in this area here. So as you can see, I had to keep avoiding the cars while I was surveying that. Okay, so that sort of runs through what we can do in terms of commercial properties. As I say, we can do anything. There's several car dealerships in there, but we can do a whole range of items, offices, barn conversions that we've done through to changing into offices. So yeah, so you know, that was just showing you a particular element of the business. So basically, just to sort of run through what we would like as referrals. You know, if you know anybody that wants to build a new house or extend their property, or even improve and modernise the home, might just be creating extra space or converting an existing building into a dwelling. Also, we're looking to work with various developers, sort of focused on the housing here, but again, it might be that people want to change a site use into industrial units or commercial properties, shops, offices, whatever. we can basically deal with all of that. And happy to talk to anybody that, you know, has anything in mind that they want us to look at. So hopefully that gives you an overview of one element of what we can do. And, you know, any questions, let me know. So that's it. Basically, I've got a couple of people I'd also like to try and contact with if possible. It's a company called Ingleton Homes who we'd like to work with, who obviously do housing. Harding Homes, based in Colchester, again, they do quite a bit of housing. I'd like to connect with them if possible. And another housing developer based in Wood and Mortimer called Hallmark Development. So if anybody happens to know any of those people, that would be very useful. And that's it. Anyone with any questions, let me know.
So I'll start off. I noticed in some of your plans there, Andrea, that there was office space and things. Do you get involved with nitty-gritty planning right down to electrical and cabling and sort of like outlets and things on the wall? And
on some projects, yes, although depending on what type of project it is. So that farm conversion that we're doing at the moment, where we're at building reg stage and we're getting everything ready to go out to tender, there are M&E contractors on board who will deal with that side of it. So all the telecommunications, electrical layouts and that sort of thing. Although I will have an input into that as far as building regulations and that's, you know, fire alarms and what we need to do, smoke alarms, that type of thing. It really does depend on the project and what the brief is. If it's just basic building regs, then you probably wouldn't get too involved in it in detail. But as I say, if we're going out to contract, then it does come into play more. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, how do I get involved in the procedure to get my name put forward as a bidder for the likes of internet and telephone services?
Yeah. Well, you'd probably need to speak to the project manager. So what they're doing is going out to tender and they're sending it out. They're really sending it out to main contractors to price it, and presumably those main contractors will then go out to, you know, subcontractors like yourself to do those particular elements of it. So it's probably more the contractors you'd need to speak to, or the proposed contractors, to actually get on the list somehow.
Okay, is that somebody that you can introduce us to?
Yeah, I don't know whether the list has been finalised yet. So it could be a few months before that is done. I haven't got any say in who that is. So yeah, it's maybe a case of after Christmas when it goes out, we'll know who the contractors is they've sent it out to. There's probably likely to be 4 to 6 people, something like that.
Okay.
Andrea, is it Ingleton Wood? Would that be one of your targets? I think they're part of the Ingleton group, potentially.
Yeah, no, they're a different organisation. And in fact, Ingleton Wood is who I was just talking about, the M&E contractors.
Because I know Scott Barlow really well. When I was chairing Mind, he was one of our trustees. So I know Scott Barlow really well. So I just thought you might want an intro, but I'm guessing you don't need that.
Ingleton Wood, yeah. I'm actually, they are the project managers on that particular job I was talking about.
Okay. No intro needed then.
Plus the health and safety bit. So yeah, no, I'm in with them.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing because it does seem like Ingleton Wood and Ingleton Homes are.
But Danny, you thinking you want an intro?
I think Andrea knows what I do. Do you get involved with all the U?
No, I meant with Ingleton Wood, mate. But I'll shut up now.
Yeah, do that. Do you get involved with U-value calculations and all that kind of thing, and help with the specification of certain types of insulation and all that kind of thing, or do you leave that down to them and you just tell them what they need to meet in order to hit the building?
I tend to work out what U-values are needed. Yeah. It depends on what sort of job it is. So for instance, those farm buildings, just going back to that, the whole of those buildings are going to be clad with a Kingspan insulation.
Okay.
So what I do with that is I work out in conjunction with the guy that's doing the SBEM, because it's not house, so it's a different system.
Yeah, so it's
yeah, so we'll work out basic levels of U values that are required. I have then spec'd up the Kingspan insulation based on a thickness to get to that U value. In new build houses, I will actually work out the U value required and specify the exact insulation that I want to go into that.
Yeah.
Now, it may be that it can be a similar approved. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we all know that Celotex is just the brand that we use, but there's 10 different types of product that are all made in the same place and all look exactly the same.
Yeah, and they have the same K values.
And as long as they've got the certification to prove it, it's fine. It's like the Canal KS45 versus the Rockwell RW45. It's the same product, just a different bag, but it's knowing the difference and fundamentally making sure the certification ticks the boxes in order to get the EPC at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to go with the major companies. So Celotex, or I think Celotex's days are numbered with the Grenfell situation.
Yeah, but fundamentally, the Celotex side of things, if you're going for a PIR, it's all owned by Saint-Gobain anyway, and so it's the same stuff.
Well, but that's and I noticed their website. I went on to do UVAL the other day, and I noticed they'd all changed.
It's all changing to Saint-Gobain insulation in the next 6 months.
And I don't know whether that's to do with the Grenfell thing that they're trying to
slightly.
save
it's also
themselves.
They ran a loss of Isova last year, and they don't want it for no reason. So amalgamating it just means that they've got one lot of printing to do on the PIR.
Yeah. So so I tend to stick with the main Kingspan, Celotex, British Gypsum, and then if somebody wants to swap that for a equally, equal product, then that's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Quick question from me then, which is, how often do you get regulatory sign-off or planning permission sign-off sort of issues? How often do you get challenged by those?
Well, I get quite a lot of planning approvals through. It's the unusual ones are the ones that we get refused on. Normally the refusals are for new builds. I mean, I've just had one through which we sort of expected, which was somebody's just brought a house in a place just outside Finchinfield. It's surrounded by listed buildings, and they wanted to put a new dwelling on it, which we designed quite sympathetically, but every single one of the residents complained. So, it didn't get planning. They were trying to see if they could get planning approval, and we didn't get it. That was refused. But generally speaking, with redevelopments and things, the refusal to approval rate is very, very low on the refusal side. So normally, even if an extension or quite a major redevelopment, we will work with the planners to try and tweak it and to get it through and get an approval, rather than just say, oh, well, that's what they want to do, and like it or lump it sort of thing. So I work with the planners to make sure that we can get a planning approval. Based
on that, I'm assuming you're doing the drawings, and apologies to everyone that I'm naming people. I'm assuming you're doing the drawings for James's new house in West Bergholt.
I am.
Obviously, he's had a number of neighbours come in and say, oh, X, Y, Z, lack of light and all that kind of thing. Am I right in thinking that actually that's just a phrase that people pick out because they assume it means something, and therefore it's something that shouldn't be... Obviously, I've come across it numerous times. I just know this is a case that we can talk about that we're both familiar with. Is that kind of a nothing thing that gets overlooked, or is that something that just causes the council to look at it, or what's the situation? Because obviously I come across this quite a lot. Yeah, I mean the planners, so any objections that come in, so normally with something like James and Kim want to do, you will get objections. So one of the neighbours has been, I think he was a bit awkward to start with, to be honest. So
you know, they just will pick out these words and things like that. So, you know, but then there's a case of, you know, I wouldn't ever let somebody do something that I felt was completely and utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, so if you want to extend your back of your house by 30 metres, I'm going to say, no, you're
Don't be
not
stupid, yeah.
never, ever going to get that.
So fundamentally, what
I
you're
was trying
saying
to-
is what's been submitted, you've done with a view that it doesn't affect the surrounding area in a
No,
detrimental way.
and in that, yeah, so in that case, both of the adjoining properties haven't got any windows down the sides.
No, and they angle off in a weird direction anyway, don't they?
Precisely. So really, you know, planning says that if you take a 45-degree line to the centre of a window,
Yeah.
you're allowed to do that. But the fact there's no windows and there's just brickwork there, you know, you're not interfering with anybody. So really, you can start to get rid of those arguments with the planners and work with the planners. So maybe they'll say, well, there's maybe a little point here. Maybe you just need to tweak it slightly in order to get it approved. But ultimately, the neighbours, what they say, because well, you probably know, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And even some of my clients go to their neighbours and say, this is what we're going to do. Is that okay? You know, and they say, oh, yeah, that's fine. And then 2 weeks later, they've got
The letter comes in the post and
the council because they don't like it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the planner's decision, and they will look at it from a planning perspective, not from a neighbour's perspective.
Yeah. No, that's what I thought the case was. It's just obviously James and Kim are an easy one because I know them personally and I know that you're getting involved with it. But you see it all the time where people are wanting to put in new builds, and they get nervous because a neighbour comes in and says a phrase that sounds legit. And that's, how do you overcome that when, from my perspective, I'm trying to price the materials based on something that they're not 100% convinced they're going to be allowed to do?
Yeah, and yeah, I did have a bit of a panic phone call from James and Kim last night.
I mean, they are the warriors of warriors, aren't they? So,
so you know, and because I do it all the time, I just sort of can sort of step away from it a bit. But
yeah.
In fact, I had one just up the road here, opposite to where Kim and James have just moved from.
Okay.
And they wanted a 2-storey side extension over the garage. What do you think? Yeah, I can't see any problems with it. Then the neighbours objected, and a couple of the builders were saying, oh, I can't see you're going to get that. And I said, and they come to me panic stricken. And I'm saying, well, no, because I don't see any issues with it. And if that's what you want to do, then I suggest we put it in.
I suppose it's no different really to what James and Kim did down the side of their house. So
no, except for this was 2-storey. Anyway, so it went in, and they queried something else, the planners. I went up the road and took loads of photos and said, well, I don't agree with you. And we got planning approval for exactly what they wanted.
Cool.
So, you know.
So it's useful to know that not only are you an asset in terms of being able to provide the really detailed drawings that you've demonstrated, but actually you're an ally to the team, as it were, that can actually take a real pragmatic approach to getting it put through the whole application and into the starting phases, as opposed to when I did my property, I had an architect on board who just did me the drawings. When we had neighbours being a pain in the arse and giving us grief, he wanted additional money off us to then start getting involved even further, to the point where we took it off his hands and dealt with it ourselves.
Right.
Fortunately, I'm in an industry and of the knowledge of how to build and stuff that it didn't matter too much. But a lot of people would be scared off from undertaking a project because they haven't got the allies or the know-how to do things. So it's good to know that you can offer that level of service. Yeah,
within my scope of services, I deal with the council. I mean, Kim did send an email back to the planning officer following the neighbours, but it came from them. But I went through it, I looked at it, and I gave them a lot more information to put into that.
Yeah.
To go back. And my theory is, you know, you want to try and get people their planning permission.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Some people just go, oh well, planners.
I've had my fee. That's me done.
Anymore. But whereas I will try and get that planning approval for them.
That's awesome.
That's actually very reassuring, Andrea. I mean, I had an incident a few years ago with my my late father's estate, where I was selling his house. Now, he'd been in that house since basically about 6 months after I was born, so it was in a pretty dire state by then. It was really in need of major refurbishment, and I had a huge problem with one of the neighbours myself, actually, to sell the place in the first place. And I think if my buyer had had someone like you on board, it would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I try to work with the client, not against them. And whilst you were saying about the extra fees, Dan, that is in my scope. But if I had to completely redesign it, then obviously you'd be looking at extra fees. But my initial fee is to try and get it through for them.
That's awesome. It's again, as long as it's transparent at the beginning, you don't mind. It just, from experience, obviously I've learned a lot. I did our extension 5 years ago now. And subsequently, we've learned a lot how to deal with things, and obviously I deal with more and more builders and all that kind of stuff every single day. But from the perspective of you introducing yourself to a potential client, it's really useful for you to basically almost say, I can handhold you as much as you like or as little. This is what you're paying for. If you want any extra stuff, make it clear at the beginning that we can charge you for the extra stuff as and when, or all in one go. It just is a nice little add-on that I don't often see from architects.
Yeah, I think, and I hear that quite a lot. And I also hear quite a lot that people don't take any notice of what people actually want, and they just go away and do something, and they come back and say, well, that's not what I wanted.
A lot of architects I've worked with are really good at Control C, Control V.
Yeah. And and I try to get back and answer my clients, like we all do. There's no doubt some people that can become a bit of a pain sometimes, but sometimes I think it's better off to just answer the email and do it than it is to wound up about it. And, customer service, I suppose, isn't it? It's all down to that.
Yeah, that's cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.